And that's with anything as far as like being in a position where your business is referral based. Like you have to train people how to refer you business. And that's the case for real estate too. Like,
100%.
you need to train your little army of wholesalers and real estate agents on what you're looking for, or you're going to get nothing or a bunch of trash.
No, and that's huge. Hey, welcome to the Strategic Success Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Fricke. Thanks for tuning in.
So welcome to the show. Courtney and Jared here talking real estate and welcoming people to our podcast. Today we're talking with Gabriella Francescon. I consider you a friend, so I'm really excited to hear about you in the real estate world. I've had a good time watching you grow and solve some pretty crazy problems between the two of us over the last couple of years.
That is true.
So let's tell them a little about who Gabby is.
Yeah, Gabby, I consider you a friend as well.
It's Gabriella, y'all.
He's the only one who says Gabby.
I know, and I don't correct him because we are friends, but
you should.
He proceeds to introduce me as Gabby, and I had to correct five people.
So Gabriella, and I'm like, he's saying it, so I'm like, okay. But at the end of the day,
Close friends can call me
We
Gabby.
could have had this conversation before we started, but whatever, screw it. Gabriella Francescon. There we go.
that's like when someone calls me the first time, like, hey, Court. I'm like, who are you?
Oh, okay. Bestie status.
Okay. So let's chat about this. And likewise, I consider you a friend. Obviously, we've gone on double dates with our significant others. Yeah. We have done Mardi Gras, various things like that. And so let's talk about this, though. I appreciate how you show up in real estate, just overall. But let's talk about a little bit what you've done. And so, so you have been at a few different brokerages over the years in your career, because you got in 2015.
Yes.
Right? So 9 years in.
Wow.
I know.
That happened fast.
It happened just a little bit. You have a background in the hospitality industry.
Correct.
And so I think that's huge, like knowing how to work with people, all of that stuff. But then, so over your years, so you're an associate broker.
Yes.
Okay. And you have been a top producing agent at every brokerage you've been at.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's not something everyone can say they've done. Let's see. You've graced the cover of Real Producers. You have, let's see, you were published in City Business. So
yes.
That's a magazine that, what is it? It showcases various things going on in the city. So you got published in City Business for having the highest sales in New Orleans.
Yeah.
That was when?
It wasn't that long ago, actually. The beginning of this year. So either January or February.
And so when was that the highest sale in New Orleans? Was that just at that time, the highest sale that
Yes.
happened? How much was that for?
That was $1,050,000. It was a new construction, kind of custom build in Lakeview. Friends of mine. It was actually our fourth transaction together. So
That's
they
awesome.
built their forever home, and I sold their previous home off market to one of my buyers, and then was able to get them in their custom built dream home.
That's awesome. So, but that's not the highest you've ever done.
No.
What, you've since broken that record?
Oh yeah.
Okay. What's the highest that you've done?
So 2.9 million. It was a portfolio of rental properties that my client had in his family. He actually inherited them from his dad. His dad had built them. Him and his brothers were helping build them when they were children, and he held them as rental properties for a long time. And so I was really honored to be able to represent him in that sale. And it sold fast. Cash buyer.
And here's the thing: is a lot of people don't realize there's a different realm when you start dealing in higher price point properties and investment properties. So
Yes.
you are also an investor yourself. So that's one of the things that you specialize in. Mm-hmm. So obviously you're also a fantastic mother. You've got 3 great kids.
Yeah.
That you and your husband, you guys like to travel, all of those things. So those things are all exciting. So let's go ahead and chat about some of the things that you've got going on.
Okay.
So tell me, again, one of the things that you and I have done together, which is exciting, and is solve some pretty creative real estate problems for people. So tell me about how you balance the personal investing with your real estate agency life, because I know that they can pull on different directions. a lot of people think that if you're a real estate agent, you can do both. But I think it takes a special person to be able to invest in real estate and be a high level producing real estate agent. So tell me about how you balance those two dynamics.
I mean, I think that it's really easy and it's not much of a balancing act. They kind of run together a little bit in the sense that, I have properties that come to me and clients that come to me that might have a deal. And if it works for me, cool, we buy it. If not, it's just another tool in my belt to be able to offer them to go to the MLS if I'm not their buyer, or vice versa. They call me because they know I'm a real estate agent and they want to go to the market, but I'm like, well, hey, I'm also a buyer. So it's really hardly a balancing act, in my opinion.
How many times do you go looking for a property to buy for yourself that you actually list, and how often do you find a property that you're looking to list? You're like, I might be able to buy that and do that myself.
So properties that I look for myself, I end up listing probably pretty frequently. It's a portion of my business. And then
because you're not the right fit, and so you say, hey, you know what? Let me pull a different tool out of the bag. Instead of me being the buyer, I can also help list it and get you.
for sure.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
then,
something will work different for you.
Yeah.
Better.
And I don't think we've yet to buy one where they brought it to me. I've analyzed or come close, but for whatever reason, it wasn't exactly the right fit.
So your client was like, hey, this, and you were like, hey, I'll consider it as a buyer, but then it didn't work, but you're mostly buying from other sources. And so that makes sense. And so at the end of the day, talk to me about what investing looks like for you. So you're obviously a top producing agent. You're a mother. You like to travel. You're doing all these things. You're also, in the sirens.
Yeah, I like to have fun.
Right. You and I have played pickleball together. Right. Like you like doing various things. But so talk
Very
to me about why.
Pickleball player.
I think you only play with old people.
Yeah, I do, because I only play with old people in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
But hey, when Johnny comes up and Johnny has 6 rentals, I'm like, Johnny,
That is
do you like
no
your
lie.
kids? Do you
no lie.
do you want these rentals to go to your kids? So on the
Absolutely.
sidelines, me and Johnny are having conversations.
Have you bought properties at pickleball too?
Not yet, but I've developed relationships that I know they would, use me as their agent or.
I feel like I have like a little line of conversations. I'm
For
like,
sure.
let's have a conversation after this game. Okay, let's finish.
I've showed property to someone that I met through pickleball. So, and that was like $1 million properties.
Oh,
That's
man,
awesome.
I should play pickleball.
You should come play pickleball with me
You
one
should
time.
play pickleball. It's
Just once.
super fun.
You don't. Do you like to lose pickleball?
Do I like to lose?
Have you met
Well, they don't
Courtney?
invite me to play.
Have you met me? When we first met, y'all were like, you would do allow do-overs. Like if someone missed their serve, and I'm like, I can't handle this. I can't handle. I'm like, there's
so
either
nice.
winning or
We're like,
losing,
"Try
and a do-over
again."
is not it.
Right.
And so, talk to me about why did you get into investing? Because there's so many agents who come to me and they're like, Courtney, I've been an agent for 20 years and I've always said I want to get into investing, but here they are at 20 years and they've never taken the step. The intention is there. The intention is often there, but the execution. Talk to me, why did you get into investing?
Well, I mean, so I think just to kind of touch on why I think other agents don't get into investing, it's really just lack of knowledge, even as a real estate agent for the first 5 years of my career, I was never told about creative financing options. I was never told about how to, scale a portfolio quickly. I thought 25% down. I need 25% down payment.
Yeah.
And,
I don't have that, therefore I cannot do it.
right. Or, so typically entrepreneurs are notoriously bad with money, people that live on commissions. And so I think a lot of agents don't invest because they're not ever able to get to that 25% down payment. And so
Or they're not thinking long term.
and for me, having assets has always been just ingrained in me. I don't really know where it came from, to be honest with you, but I always knew I wanted to, obtain real estate. And so I learned during the pandemic really is when I got heavy into learning about investing in creative options. And then I don't know, I'm just someone that's like hands-on learner. So I'm like, I have to do this. So once I got a little bit of knowledge and, in conjunction with a great team, a great title attorney and, mentors, I just jumped in and did it.
Well, I think this is important because a lot of times I have investors who are like, hey, I'm going to get my real estate license so I can learn how to invest.
No.
Why do you say
Don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, so honestly, no, like I love being a real estate agent. So I say this lightly. If I knew then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have gotten a real estate license, to be
Interesting.
honest. I would have just like jumped into wholesaling or something. I think you can get more, you have more rules you have to follow, and you have this whole LREC entity in your life, and you're just more regulated when you have a real estate license. So unless you're actually going to be a real estate agent and provide a service for sellers and buyers in the retail market, I think that you're better off not having a license as an investor.
I completely agree. I think a lot of people feel like you have to be doing that side of real estate in order to learn it. When the reality is, if you're not,
They're
if you're
totally
not very
different.
good at it, then you're not going to make enough money to be able to afford to be able to buy
what
or
is
invest in real estate.
The average agent makes what, 30
They do
something?
like 4 transactions a year.
And they make like 30 something grand a year, right? Like, so it's not something to write home about for what you have to do.
Yeah.
Like the people are like, oh, well, it's 30 to 40 grand a year, Courtney. Yeah, but the work, the correlation of work.
Yeah, but if you're good at it, that helps you generate enough revenue and funds in your life to be able to buy and invest in real
So
estate.
you're top producing. So like Gabriella, she's top producing.
Yeah.
She's doing very well, and it's it's an opportunity. It's an income source.
No, I think, and like you said, like going and learning about how to be a real estate agent gives you some basic understanding of how to write the contract and how to, spot issues with houses in a general sense, but not actually knowing how to run numbers and how to make it an investment decision as opposed to a decision that's going to help my house. Like, like even my mom and my dad, they were buying some properties in Baton Rouge whenever I was in college. And, you buy a rental property for a kid in college, you put 4 walls up and enough space to put a beer pong table, and they're going to be happy. But my
For
mom
sure.
wanted to, like, buy the nice, house, and she wanted to paint the walls and make it look all nice
Shiplap
and
and-
pretty.
yeah.
Nobody cares. But
Yeah,
the kids,
for
and
sure.
that's not looking at a house or something that you're going to live in with your family is different than what you're
totally
going to do.
different.
Yeah, and so looking at it in different perspectives is it takes a skill that you have to learn that's different than what you learn as a real estate agent.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I call them, and I've never actually heard another agent say this, but I guess you guys interact with more agents, but I just like separate my business into my retail business and my investing business.
Yep.
And they're very different. It's
Yes.
almost like it blows my mind that commercial licenses and residential licenses are the same, because it's very different. And I didn't even ever know how different it was until I became an investor and really immersed myself in that world. Because as a new agent, you always want to go after investors because they're going to feed your pipeline.
Right.
And so when you're looking at it from that way, like you can get yourself in a little bit of hot water, and you just really don't know what you don't know until you're actually in the trenches with investors investing.
So where did you go to learn? So did you
TikTok.
TikTok?
People laugh, but let me tell you something. During the pandemic, when everybody was downloading that little app, looking at bread recipes and Tiger King memes, I was doing the same thing, but also in the mix would be like real estate agent stuff. And then I always like to nod to this content creator, but Sam Faster Freedom, Sam Prim, has become a friend of mine and a mentor. And I found his content on TikTok, and the way I'm very ADHD. And if you don't get to the point in like 5 seconds, you're going to lose me, And so his content was amazing. And so he was just like spouting out how to do the Burr method. And I had never even heard of that. 5 years as an
So
agent.
for agents who don't know, that is a tool that many investors use.
Yeah. So
Right?
go ahead.
Well,
What are
yeah.
buy, rehab, refinance, rent, repeat, or maybe rent, refinance, repeat.
Yeah, and then it's the idea of being able to use a lump sum, get a deal done, and then after a period of time, you can pull that money back out to go use it again.
For sure.
It's a cycle, right? And so a lot of investors, I've personally have never done it, but a lot of investors use it. But it's overcoming some of those objections. What if I only have a
which
limited amount of
is
money?
Down payment. Yeah. Which is, I would say, the most common objection would be down payment.
Yeah.
And so when I learned about that, I was like, wow, that's super easy. I probably called someone and verified that this is a thing and can be done. And once I got that confirmation, I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And I did.
Well, and I think this is huge. So back when I was running the North Shore Real Estate Investors Association, I actually had a panel. I had 5 or 6 people in the panel, and it was a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. And the conversation was, should investors get their license? And honestly, it was a big, it depends, which I hate that answer. But it's the concept of most investors shouldn't just go get it because they can save a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Right? Like the work correlation to the little bit that you save, that's just another hat you now have to wear.
Yeah. I think the only caveat would be maybe if you're like a massive flipper that's listing more than 10, more than 15.
But even then, if you're doing that much volume, that is not a role you should be on your
For
team.
sure.
Like
I agree.
it becomes a hat you wear, and that is the hat I'm not best at wearing, right? Which is why I've done transactions with dozens, if not over 100 agents in our region, because that's not the hat that I wear best. Let me go do what I do best, right? And so that's a huge thing. Investors, so I'm a big proponent of investors not just automatically getting their license to save a few dollars.
For sure.
And on the other end of that, though, but going back to learning, I think there is a misnomer that agents are experts about investing, like right out of the taking the class.
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
I could tell you what an ARPANT is out of the class. That's like it.
I actually use that pretty often, but yeah. Not you.
Well, I've never used it. So,
But the idea there, it's like, hey, come to me if you want to buy, sell, invest, right? And so as someone who educates, so not being licensed, but to educate a lot for investors in the public, but also specifically for agents, you and I've talked about this. I've wanted to create a class for, how to work with investors, because a lot of agents aren't being taught what makes a good deal. Why do investors, basically how do investors approach things like the Burr method, learning that if they can understand that, if they can tap into what investors are looking for, and then they can then build repeat business, right? So that agents have to be willing to look for education outside of CE classes.
for sure.
Period. That's a full statement.
It all comes back to you have to figure out how to add value to what that niche is that you're trying to work with, and value is gained through education.
Let me ask you that. So, what do you think your niche is for as a real estate agent, and what's your niche as a real estate investor? Because we talked about the Burr method, and we all know that the Burr method doesn't work right now. So you gotta.
Why doesn't? So not everyone knows that. Why does the Burr method not work right now?
If the refinance is part of the Burr
So you're
method,
buying something with cash, particularly at a discount. You're renovating it and then renting it out. Once it's stabilized by being rented out and making money, then you're going to a lender and refinancing so you can pull your original cash out.
Right.
Right. So then people don't know it's not working.
but because the point of my statement is that the Burr method is not generally working right now because of the interest rates and the fact that when you refinance, it's hard to get the money out that you put into it, and it doesn't cash flow because the rates are too high. But my question is you're still going back to that same source to learn new strategies, and so again, you have as a real estate agent, you have a niche, I'm sure, and then as a real estate investor, you had the Burr method. Now, what is your strategy for investing? I'll start with you as an agent. What is your niche as an agent?
My niche as an agent has become working with investors, just by default, kind of. And
talk about, working with investors, having that as a niche as an agent. Can you talk about? Last year, 2023, was a crazy year for agents in our market, especially after June. The market was like,
yeah.
What was it like for you?
It was fine. It's funny because when other agents would ask how's business for you? I almost would shy away from the question because I felt bad that business was fine. And I think that it's a combination of, my niche has become working with investors, but really it's through organic relationship building with those investors.
Right.
It shifted for me because when I was a new agent and being told by my team leader and my mentors and coaches, to go work with investors so you have a steady stream of business coming in to list, that was my goal, was I need to go find something for myself, which is, listing houses from flippers or whatever it was. And I wasn't bringing any value to them. I can put in the MLS and do some fancy Canva posts. I had no value to bring to them. And so once
a lot of agents can do that. They can put in the MLS, take photos, and maybe make a Canva.
Right.
Every agent can do that.
Yeah.
No, they can't. Hey, No, they can't.
Okay.
That bar is not there. But keep
But
going.
then it shifted from like this selfish kind of act to I'm going to go surround myself with investors because I need to learn from them so that I can invest myself. And then I have this added value and skill of being a real estate agent that, a lot of investors don't have. And as I become more experienced, I bring a ton of value to those clients. I'm able to kind of educate them on the decisions I make as an investor. So as an agent, it's become investors, and that's only kind of recently.
Yeah, and one question before you move on to what your niche is as a real estate agent, how often do you present a deal to an investor and give them the whole picture and the whole strategy to where it's like, hey, this person's a flipper, you come with them and like convince them that it's a good flip, as opposed to bringing them a property that they have to then look and see if it's a good flip? Like, do you talk with your investors to know what their strategy is, what they want in a return and all that stuff, and then you go find the deal, run the numbers, and give it to them? Or are you finding the deals and they're kind of working through it together?
I find the deal and then, match it with my database, like who's cash buying or who wants this crazy thing that has a title with 70,000 liens,
Yeah.
That would be a Courtney
Don't
deal.
at me. But also at me.
Yeah.
Also at me.
Right. So, no, I don't. I go the deal and
Yeah.
then the database.
And here's the thing is, depends on the investor. Some investors, this is what I tell agents, some investors need their hand held. Those are generally the green,
I'm not a handful.
more afraid to pull the trigger type of investors. They need education, right? Which is why the local investor meetups are fantastic.
Yeah.
Like helping them learn, because if you're holding their hand, they most likely will not pull the trigger.
For
They're
sure.
going to be afraid to do that. If you
Absolutely.
have to teach them what a good deal is, they shouldn't, like that. That's a tough ideal client. You want someone who you can send, correct me if I'm wrong, you can send it to and they can pull the trigger.
Essentially, yeah, which is also why I don't go like shop for deals for people. I would point them to a wholesaler, which I do find value in, which is uncommon as an agent.
And most agents don't see their value in the
Yeah,
marketplace.
I'm not doing that. I'll point them to a wholesaler if you want someone out there that's going to like grind for an $80,000 deal. I mean, let's just be real.
Yeah.
But also because I've seen that where, you have not even an amateur investor, but you spend all this time finding a deal and then you bring it to your investor and they're like, I'm scared. Or like I did this or something. So I think that's just counterproductive
If you have
to
to
do it that way.
I would say this, if you have to convince them of the deal,
It's either not a deal or they're not really understanding or they're not ready. So
and yeah, they're not the right investor. If you
Mm-hmm.
believe it's a deal, number one,
they're not the right investor. That's really it. I mean, I have like somebody just brought me $1 million property in the quarter that needs like a total gut job renovation, and you have to deal with the Vucare Commission, and you have to deal with like all this permitting in New Orleans, and then renovating and getting equipment in the quarter, like
someone sent me that,
during
not
French
the
Quarter
person.
Fest. Exactly. I'm not going to bring that to certain people, but I do have someone that I'm like, this is so up his alley because it's very niche, and a lot of people don't want to deal with that. So I think that learning what your buyer's buy boxes are, which again, when I was a brand new agent, I didn't know what a buy box was. Well, like they're not teaching that in a brokerage classroom.
That's not agent language. Let's hold on the niche as an investor. On the agent side, working with investors, like knowing what their buy box. If an investor did not have a buy box and they just said, "Oh, just
can
when it's a
go
deal, send
work
me."
with someone else. Because I'm not doing that.
So I used to always say, just send me a deal. That leaves
You'll
it
get
is-
nothing.
Yeah, it is so vague because then it then says, Gabriella, you have to guess what a deal is.
For sure. And that's with anything as far as like being in a position where your business is referral based. Like you have to train people how to refer you business. And that's the case for real estate too. Like,
100%.
you need to train your little army of wholesalers and real estate agents on what you're looking for, or you're going to get nothing or a bunch of trash.
No, and that's huge. I tell agents all the time, if you get a turnkey triplex that, that they want retail, I'm not your buyer.
Hey guys, Courtney Fricke here. We've got Aussie Steve. And look, if you have a deal that needs to get moved, Southeast Louisiana, even in South Mississippi, we're your folks. We are the largest dispo company, really in the greater New Orleans area, even Southeast Louisiana. We have great contacts in South Mississippi as well. Steve, why do we move more deals than others?
just we're very deep in this market. So Greater New Orleans can be really confusing for national wholesalers. The comps are hard. We change block for block. We got flood zones. You know, we get a lot of hurricanes and the likes. And just a lot of the national platforms don't have the buyers on their list. So we are deep with buyers, but we're deep with relationships, which is really important in this market. So we love JVing with out-of-state investors.
Like I said, we do a ton of business with other investors. So go to homebuyerlouisiana.com/Courtney, fill out the information. We'll get in touch with you and we'll move this deal along.
For sure.
If it is going to hell in a handbasket some way or somehow, I'm probably your buyer.
Right.
I'm like, you know what I mean? Like if they're facing foreclosure, if they need top
If
dollar.
they said at least 5 words you didn't understand,
you know, things.
so that's my cue for Courtney.
But you have to be able to paint that story. But here's the thing is, a lot of agents hear the word investor and they think that person has money.
They
No.
think that person has money and a steady flow of leads. And that's usually not the case.
But the reality here is not all investors are created equal. So we have the experienced and the newbie. So the reality there, if you're going to work with investors, you need to have a level of understanding because number one, a new investor is going to be the hand holding, may not pull the trigger, you know, funding is going to be complex potentially, you know, all of that. They're either safeguarding the funding because it's all their hard earned money they saved, or they can barely go get a hard money loan, right? And they haven't done it before. Versus a very competent investor who, like, you send it to them and they'll tell you really quick if they're going to buy it, yes or no.
Right.
Or they can be able, they know how to pull the trigger. So I'm going to ask a question. Talk to me about if an agent does not invest themselves. What might be, I want to ask this correctly, but what might be an issue for some agents? Like, let's just say an agent has listened to this. They do not invest themselves, have never invested themselves, and they're wanting to work with investors. What are some of your thoughts on that?
At minimum, you need to get education. You know, I think that every agent wants to work with investors because, again, we're trained to think that that's a steady flow of business for you. So, like, who wouldn't want that, you know? But again, I think that everything we've been saying is pointing to how important it is. Like, you're just going to run yourself in circles if you don't. Investor is such a broad term. Like, are they a flipper? Are they a buy and hold? Are they a wholesaler? Are they doing novations? Are they doing subject to? I mean, like, you can go on and on.
You didn't understand 7 of those words? That points
Call
to
me.
education. Call her, right?
Yeah. And so it's, what does that really even mean? And so pick one of those things, go learn everything that you can learn about it. Maybe try to actually get yourself into the position to do a deal because you just can't. It's like, I mean, I'm a mom, so it's like you think you know everything about being a mother, and then you become a mother. And, you know, you say you're never going to let your kids sit in a restaurant with an iPad in their face, and then you become a mother, you know, and like all the things.
Sure.
So it's just the same thing. Like, you don't know what you don't know until you've been there and you've done the thing and you've walked the walk, you know?
It's like there's that famous military quote that says, all plans for battle sound great until your first encounter with enemy. Or I think like a rapper said it best, your plan is great until you get punched in the face.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It's that same concept. It's like what you know in theory about real estate is good, which is so in the investing industry, there is actually a bit of an analogy in this idea that, you know, there's a lot of, we're always very hesitant of people who speak from theory versus experience.
Yeah. And I think understanding like the weight of what's actually going on, especially, you know, when people are using their own money or they're using other people's money, like the gravity of like, this is a big deal. And so
not just the commission you'll earn from it, but like,
you need to know what it feels like to make an offer on a property. Somebody just agreed to put $200,000 of their retirement up, betting on you. You need to know what it feels like to want to throw up for the first week you're under contract, you know, like you just can't describe that feeling. You need to know what it's like to be like, we should cancel. This was such a bad idea. Yeah. Like, what are we doing? You know? Yeah. So I think that you need to have been there, done that so that you can kind of know what they're going through. You can understand the gravity of it. And then you can just, like, I don't know, you walk the walk, talk the talk. I don't know. Talk the talk, walk the walk.
I know I've done a lot of collaboration education with Arena one of the things I've pitched them is one of my ideas is I'd love to do a class that is geared toward agents to help them do their first or next investment deal, where it be a bit of a seminar that'll be like what makes a deal, how to get funding. And like, trust me, I use very few funding sources that most traditional retail deals use, right? There's a lot of
Never
different...
used traditional lending for any more real estate.
Yeah, I used a home equity.
investments.
I used a home equity line of credit, but other than that, I haven't used. And so, but you have done a lot of through the creative financing world, and by having those different tools, you can help more clients. But the thing is, I guess, let me just end my thoughts on this, and we can go into talking about you being an investor. I think a lot of agents say, let me help sellers, let me help buyers, and let me loop in and kind of just throw in helping you invest.
Because they're throwing that blanket statement of, I have to do everything.
Buy, sell, invest.
You
Let
know?
me help you buy, sell, invest. But the reality is it can be a very, obviously you have shown, with results in your career that it can be a great niche, right? But it requires you becoming an expert in it, right?
Yeah, which takes time.
It takes time.
To become an expert in anything, you can't be an expert in all things. You don't have 10,000 hours. So you only have those so many times.
And I have been in many rooms with you where you're there as a student. And so, and I can appreciate that, right?
sure.
Like that's a huge thing. So let's talk about you as an investor.
Okay.
What is, what are you want to ask some questions about that?
I have a question. So you made a comment a second ago that sometimes you refer wholesalers to people if they need a wholesaler. So tell me when an investor needs a wholesaler, when an investor needs a real estate agent.
Well, that's a good one. Can we define wholesaling? Because I think that's also a misnomer.
So a wholesaler to me is someone that is able to get into a contract with a distressed seller and negotiate like a competitive price.
And so they're generally dealing with distressed situation, or like the seller's in a distressed situation, or the house is distressed.
Property.
And then they're contracting it, and then they're selling. They're not selling houses; they're selling that contract, that position in
They're
that contract.
assigning contracts in Louisiana are assignable, so they're assigning that contract to an end buyer.
So it's not illegal,
No.
and that is one thing. It's some people see it as illegal. It is illegal if the wholesaler is saying, and I don't even think illegal is a word. I think it's there's other words to that, but.
Well, people think it's unethical too. And
Yeah.
the reality is that not every property is qualified to go in the MLS. I mean, in my opinion, I'm sure you can literally put anything in the MLS, but you shouldn't. And number two, you don't know, like, again, what I didn't know then and what I know now, that not highest price isn't always a seller's priority.
Correct.
Timing could be their priority. Not having people in their house could be a priority.
Not having it on the market. So I think
might
I have
be in
like
jail.
7 of them right now. I have like 7 of them right now where it's like the seller doesn't want to put it on the market because so an agent came to me, a seller doesn't want to put it on the market because her cousins are nosy
Right.
and there's family strife. I had an agent who came to me because her family friend was going to foreclosure, needed speed. He's also in rehab. So Arena went and helped me track him down in rehab so we
Now
could do
you've
the
been to jail. You've been to
Hold on.
rehab.
You want to tell? Well, we don't have time for the jail story.
Okay.
It was one of the attorneys' first day on the job, and Jarrett goes, "No one tell him." And we grabbed the file, and him, the other attorney who was his first day on the job, and then 2 witnesses. We all get in a car. We go to the Covington jail
Love
and
it.
do the closing through the clear glass.
Right. And so, for instance,
That's happened
an
more times
agent.
than I like to admit.
Yeah, agents have yes man syndrome typically. A lot of people in this industry do, but not. It goes back to, as an agent or an investor, you really have to get into why. What is their why? Because it doesn't always match what you think. I always, as a new agent, was like, they just want top dollar, and this is the way to do top dollar. And sometimes I would even butt heads with the seller, and I'm like, wait, I want you to get top dollar, but maybe they're like, well, me and my wife are getting a divorce, and we can't be in the same room, so I don't really care about top dollar. I want to get out of here. And same thing for an investor. So agents particularly have issues with wholesalers because they think they're taking advantage of the seller. And with any industry, that could be the case, but a good wholesaler is a valuable
Solving a lot of
service.
problems. So,
And I'm not getting on the phone and calling these properties to find them. So I love a wholesaler.
do you think a real estate agent can be a wholesaler?
No.
I agree. I think it's very hard for somebody to go in as a
They're not
wholesaler
supposed
who's
to.
supposed to be reducing.
No, they can be. we've actually done this with I've actually gone up to LRAC and
Sure.
found information because I taught a class on how to do this back in like 2017, 2018.
But the nature of what a real estate agent is doing for somebody who's selling a piece of property is helping them get the most for their property and their situation, right? It doesn't mean top dollar, but like helping them and advocating for them to get the most put on the MLS, potentially. But a wholesaler is trying to get the best deal for themselves so that they can then go to find an end buyer and make
It's
the
just too
biggest spread.
close. I mean, practicing real
competing,
estate
yeah.
activity without a license, is a sticky spot, and it's too close. Like there's
But
having the license, you have to follow so many more guidelines.
But I also do agree with you that there is a place for for wholesalers and there
Stay
is
in
a
your
place
lane.
for real estate agents, and for them to be able to work together is super
Absolutely.
valuable. I mean, I've seen you walking around to the RIA events and networking with people and getting to know them because a wholesaler may list a property that they have under contract as a wholesaler. Like that can be a option, but they also will walk into a situation like Courtney's done in the past and say, this is not a place for me to be coming in here and you need to list this on the MLS.
So
Here's a real estate
I've
agent.
sent numerous agents. I've even sent you people who I talk to them off market, and I'm like, you don't need us. You need or I just tell them, stop trying to save your whatever percentage commission. Go list it on the market. Da da da. And
That,
they'll do
and I
that.
also look at my clients that are flippers, especially, and I know that, like you put good out and good comes back to you. And so my hope would be that they find a property that they can flip and then they just come list it with me because I'm an expert in retail real estate and marketing the end product more so than I am like going to get in the trenches and find you an $80,000 property.
Well, and so let's just say this. I do think that and this is someone I'm speaking as someone who's solely an investor, and I'm very vocal within the investor community of trying to nip some of the messiness in the bud. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that happens in every industry, right? We have the good and the bad in every
It's just
industry.
a scarcity mindset. People that don't understand the value, which again just points to agents that aren't investors, don't see the value in wholesalers, and they just think they're taking deals from me.
How do you suggest, as an agent, what are some practical tips that you can tell an agent who's trying to figure out, like, okay, tell me, how could I work with wholesalers?
Well, one is what I just mentioned. If you're working with investors that have, properties they want to flip, like in order to get that flipped end product listing, you need to have a distressed property at a discount to begin with. So unless you're going to get on the phone or go door knock or, figure out how to find them that property and then have to get the seller to pay you. And this, like, you're going to spend all that time doing it when you could have your client on 10 wholesaler lists and they could have that deal in their pocket in a week.
That. Well, and so then they're finding it. Those other people, like those wholesalers, are door knocking. They're like deep diving public records. They're doing all that.
Like having an army. It's just
outsourcing.
working more efficiently. You just have like a little army of people and you go find them a deal. And I mean, some wholesalers will, do what's called a joint venture with you where, you go tell them, look, I have a cash buyer. Here's their buy box. If you find this for me, like, let's JV it. And most wholesalers are okay with that.
Yeah, and so for me, I have wholesaled. It's there was a period of time when I was doing a lot of it. I still do it. It's not the main thing I do these days, but the reality is I have done it to where I had a wholesale, so I was under contract to buy a deal. An agent brought the buyer and earned a commission. And it paid it on the HUD. We've done that. We've had it to where I had we made it to where we dotted the I's, we crossed the T's. That agent earned a wholesale fee.
Yeah.
Right.
I think another, a tip I have for an agent, instead of automatically defaulting to, you can't do that, or that's not allowed, like, just think about, well, how can I make this work?
Right.
And have a good team, a title attorney, call Jared, you know how many times I've called Jared and been like, is this a possibility? Like, I'm on to something here. Can you help me connect the pieces,
Or the police are at my rental and my husband's there. Can you please get on the phone and
That
talk to the
so
police
having
officer?
that good relationship
through
so that you can have your attorney on the phone when the cops are at your investment property is important.
So, but here's the thing: is not all wholesalers are created equal. I believe there's probably about a 5 to 10% of really strong ones, maybe within the market. And so, go find the ones who are operating at a high level.
Yeah, you gotta weed them out. I mean, that's even with agents. Like, you don't want to do a deal with the agent that sold 2 properties last year.
People talk about the agent. Being an agent, the bar's low. Being a wholesaler, you literally watch 5 YouTube videos and now you're a wholesaler. I have a thought though. So you said something a minute ago that really caught my attention. You said that if you get your flipper in touch with 10 wholesalers, you'll have a deal in a week.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, to think about how you, like you said, it's an army. You're leveraging other relationships. You're adding value to these wholesalers by giving them opportunity. You're helping your investor find more deals quicker so that you as an agent can do what
That
you're good
fills your
at.
pipeline.
To go and
sure.
instead of beating your head against the wall and trying to be a wholesaler when you're really an agent, let the wholesalers be wholesalers to find more opportunities for you to be an agent.
And you go spend that time that you would have been, trying to find a distressed property, go find 5 more flippers.
And finding
to
distressed
be in
properties-
your pipeline, and the value you can bring to them is like, here's the 5 best wholesalers in New Orleans, and I'm about to put you on all their email lists.
When did that light bulb go off for you?
When I started getting in a room with wholesalers, because I didn't really even know what a wholesaler
Yeah.
was. And so when I started getting in the room with them and realizing that, because investors before that would be like, oh, if you ever have anything that's distressed, let me know. And I rarely did,
Yeah.
it was all retail
Yeah.
or primary residence. And so I don't know, I just started getting in a room with wholesalers, and I'm like, there's 10 of you in here, and each of you have 2 deals right now. Out of the 20 deals in this room, my flipper client could easily buy 1.
That's awesome.
Well, and then I was I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and you have me excited, so I don't mean to cut you
Yeah,
off
yeah.
too. Because so here's the thing is, it's like you have these deal finders, right? As an investor, and I believe that my email is being like sold on the black market, I literally every day can look through and find 20 to 50 emails. And it's like, okay, let me look at it. Hey, this might, and so there's a level in which I'm looking through those. Guess how many of them I miss, right? Things like that. Like there's a level of that. And yeah, you got to vet through and weed through that. But think about that. It's like there's value in that. And there is a level in which these are all, the majority, all of them, most of them are off market, right? So these are deals agents don't know exist.
Yeah, for sure. No, for my clients, and that's again like the value I bring as an agent that works with investors is like, in addition to just I'm not just going to my clients and saying, go get on wholesaler lists. Like, I'm bringing you the top 5 wholesalers that I have vetted and I know they're doing a good job. And here,
Right.
is how you get on their list instead of just feeding them to the wolves, because it could be feeding them to the wolves. And so, that's the benefit of having an agent that actually invests, is I've been in rooms enough now with wholesalers to determine like, you're trash, you're good at this.
Well, and that's just experience in the investor world, and someone very, very high up in the real estate industry that most people, if I said their name, would know them. We had a conversation that the investing world and the retail real estate world, the languages are so different.
So different.
Their understanding is so different. And the conversation I had with that person was like, most agents think they know the investing world, but they have no clue.
They don't.
And this is a huge part. What are wholesalers? What is even a wholesale list? What is it? Like all these things, like they would have no idea that there's this whole, off-market world of deals being sold, that they're great opportunities, even in this market right now, that there's great opportunities. Even in I bought some of the best deals of my life in 2021.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Me too. I did my first deal in 2021.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, so it's just, it makes me laugh because I just remember being the blind leading the blind, like in 2016, running after investors, because I thought that was the way to build a real estate agent business so quickly. And I'm like, oh, paint it gray. Like, I didn't know anything,
and it also-
they didn't know either. So it was just,
But it also does. So as I've had experiences over the years where agents have been the yes people, the yes man. Oh yeah, I can do that for you. And I've
said I'm not doing that probably 3 times in this podcast. Like, and that is also a strength that I've developed, is to learn to say, like, I'm not doing that.
That's not for
I'm
me.
not an expert in that. I mean, I brought a client to a RIA meeting recently, and
Yep.
he even said that I've had to train my clients, like, you're going to the wholesalers. You're here to like connect with these wholesalers, because that's how you're going to find a deal. Because I'm not going to be the one, like, maybe I'll bring you a distressed deal, but it's
a whole
they
skill
don't
set.
It is.
And most agents don't have the skill set of getting a deeply discounted deal. They can search the MLS for keywords or certain criterias, but there's a whole skill set to finding deeply discounted deals.
There is.
Yeah. And so, but I think that that's brilliant, because there's a level there. Again, if you can provide value to investors more than just the email drip campaign, right? If you can provide value to them, it brings, in a market like 2023 that went dead for so many agents, you had repeat business. You talked about one of your highest listings was from an investor client.
Yeah. I think that even when the market gets harder, then my business expands even.
Well, same for me.
Because then
Yeah.
like you really are bringing a value, you know? And so my business, when things get hard, since I have skills, my business expands.
Well,
So let's transition real quick before because
yeah, because we're getting too excited about all this. I'm not gonna lie. I concur. Same thing with my business.
speaking of kids, 'cause my kid just walked in. I have the first time we ever met. I don't know if you remember where we were. We were at Voodoo Donuts on Harrison.
Okay.
And you
Oh,
had
District.
District Donuts,
Yeah.
and you had one of your kids with you. And I know that kids are big. Your kids are a big part of your life.
Yes.
I've done closings where you brought your whole family, got to hang out with Michael and your kids. So tell me about how how you feel about being able to do real estate with your family.
I love it. I talk to my kids, like they'll ask me, I'll say, oh, mom sold a house today. And they'll say, how much did you make? And I'll tell them and like their little eyes light up. And I want them to have that. I want them to know that like you can build a huge life through real estate, whether it's as an agent, as an investor, especially, or both, you know, like this is the skill that I have to offer you. And so I want to be able to share that with my children. Like it's given us a really great life. And so I try to get them involved. We bring them to properties when we buy them and they're distressed so they can see like what this looks like. And, you know, when I sell houses as a real estate agent, I tell them about it. And on the flip side too, like it's cool. I'll be like, you know, oh, I sold your teacher a house,
Yeah,
you know?
that's awesome.
And so like they love that. And so I enjoy being able to make them part of it.
What is what is Michael's role in the whole deal? Because I know Michael, you might do y'all do business together. I actually was on the Zoom call with Michael the other day. I don't even know if you knew we were going to have the conversation, but we were chatting about another little niche that y'all were kind of getting into with the real estate business, and your kids were in the background. And I love that because I tell everybody, if you're going to work with me at Arena, you're going to be okay with kids being here. I mean, I'm 35 years old.
This is why we
I've
do
held your
what we're
kids,
doing.
Do what?
I've held your kids and I've had no qualms about
and
it. You've also seen my dog at closing. So yeah.
It's what I mean. Like, I want people to know that your kids are welcome here, and it's normal. That's where we're at in our life, and I want them to be a part of it too.
Absolutely.
And so I know you feel that way, and it was fun watching your kids and interacting with you at the closing table, and then Michael. So how does it like working with your husband, and what role does he play in y'all's whole picture?
Yeah, so Michael has gotten more and more involved as we've progressed, you know. So we like he loves to educate himself. Like sometimes I'm literally like, can you turn off YouTube? Like I'll walk into the kitchen, he's listening to some real estate thing, and I'm like, I just don't want to hear it right now. Like, can we not? And so, but now we're in a spot where, you know, I've kind of trained him to get to where he is. And so now I can hand over like underwriting. Like, so he just underwrites deals all day. And, you know, we determine if it's a good deal for us to buy or not. And then he's just kind of my right-hand person. I ran him to some listing on the West Bank to put a lockbox on, and you know he's delivering my signs, or if I don't want to get murdered at an open house, he's there with me, you know. So we've been fortunate.
Or when the police get called to you want to hear.
Oh my God, that was horrific. I should have been there for that. But you know, he handled it. But you know, we've been fortunate enough that after COVID, he didn't have to go back to work, and so we've been able to make it work like parallel, which is awesome because I am not working with my husband. So it's parallel. He has his defined role and he knows what that is, and I have mine and I know what that is. And so we don't need to like mesh too much unless he's like, well, you know.
And I have that
this
with
deal.
business partners where it's like, I don't need someone who's just doing the same thing as me. I need someone who's doing maybe my weakness, or they're doing
Michael
where I
and I
have
have
bottleneck.
polar opposite skills.
Correct.
Like I'd rather die than underwrite deals all day.
Exactly.
I love talking to Michael. He's a good dude.
I like them too.
So, the question I ask everybody is, you know, there's obviously family's important to you, and I think being a real estate investor is something that you're like passionate about. So, what legacy do you want to leave as a real estate professional, or as a mom, or as a woman who has a family? What legacy do you want to leave whenever you're done?
I think about that often. I think it changes a lot. Fundamentally, it's just security. And I'm always really open about this, but my dad was homeless when he died. You know, he suffered from mental illness, so that definitely played a role, but he never owned his property. You know, he lost his job. He like literally the lights got turned off. He got evicted and he was homeless, and then he passed away. And so security and like literal shelter is kind of fundamental. And then to me, like, money has never stopped me from doing anything. Like, to me, I'm always like, you just figure out how to go get more money. And money is the gateway to being able to do what you want in life. And so if my kid wants to, go to some crazy, I have one that I know will probably want to go to some crazy Ivy League school. I want to be able to have an asset to sell or to have the cash flow to be able to send him there without debt. I have one that will probably have a farm in Costa Rica, like, and jumping off of waterfalls. And if he wants to do that, I want to teach him how to be able to acquire that farm in Costa Rica. And so I just want my kids to be happy and secure and safe. And so this is the way I know how to get there.
I love that.
And so I want to help promote you as a real estate agent. We talked a lot about real estate investing, but you are like a really, really good real estate agent too. I mean, I truly believe that. There's a lot of real estate agents out there, but like I think you're one of the top agents. So as an agent at Rev Realty,
Yeah.
Rev
Realtors.
Rev Realtors.
Rev Realtors.
Yes.
You said Rev Realty.
It's
okay. Rev Realtors.
Rev Realtors. What it like? How does that brand fit with you and your personality? And what, like, who's your ideal client? How do you want to be seen as a real estate agent?
So as a real estate agent, my ideal client is a seller, someone who's selling their primary residence, because I am an expert marketing, and it's fun and easy to market a beautiful product. But also I'm a really great negotiator. And so I've been able to creep up into these price points where those negotiation skills are critical.
Yeah. You've taught me things on that, like the deals that we've done together. I've appreciated that because you've taught me things. And I didn't feel like it was a level in which I was having to step in and hold your hand. No, you were, I could trust you with doing it, and you taught me things along the way.
Thanks. Appreciate that. That's cool.
Is it, I like doing deals in New Orleans, especially the ones where you're like not only negotiating the price of the house, but then you got the artwork in the house sometimes.
God,
And you got,
There's lots of emotions flying.
So
and
like Aussie Steve getting the so like my good friend Aussie Steve, he got the throne chairs, like these like crazy throne chairs.
Yeah.
They're literally on his balcony, and he's like, I have this throne.
It's so
And I'm
funny.
Like, stupid.
But I think that I have the upper hand in that situation because a lot of times when it's your primary residence, emotions are running high. And I think that something that a lot of agents do is they bring that emotion into their negotiations. Like, first of all, simmer down. It's not your house. Right. But, I think that the person who can maintain control of their emotions is always going to have the upper hand when it comes to negotiating. And so my ideal client is in New Orleans, a home seller, probably in that, $400,000 to $1 million plus price range.
what's your geographical reach right now as being an agent?
So pretty much all of the South Shore. Most of my deals are in Orleans Parish. I know Metairie very well, Kenner. So pretty much, New Orleans, Metairie, Kenner. Mandeville I'm familiar with because I lived here after Katrina. Beyond that, I am not afraid to say no. If I have a huge listing in Slidell right now, that's a very niche location and I'm familiar with that. But beyond that, if I'm not comfortable with it, I'll refer it out all day long. Yeah. Because nothing drives me more crazy than when an agent who's heavy in Covington comes and lists something on the corner of Annunciation and, Camp.
Right.
Go back there.
And they don't know to
doing.
do a plumbing inspection because it's the South Shore.
Right.
And yeah. So
Right.
On the flip side, I've seen agents from the South Shore not know they need to get the septic inspected before they get in the field house.
That's me.
we've literally just had this conversation. So with that being said, I can smell someone if they just work on the North Shore and they're on the South Shore.
For sure.
Or vice versa. I can smell it a mile away by how they lead their clients. So with that being said, what are some of the best ways for folks to get in touch with you?
Really, social media is a great way. So Instagram, Gabriella Nola Realtor, or Gabriella Francescon on social media, or email Gabriella@revrealtors.com. I don't know if y'all have show notes. Do you want
We
to
do.
put all
Yeah,
that in
we'll put
there?
it all in the show notes so that people can easily find you.
It's not Gabby at.
It's not Gabby.
At all.
And so I know I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, which is why I thoroughly enjoyed conversations with you generally. But at the end of the day, obviously I was getting too excited. I was like, I gotta shut up. Just because I think these are important conversations. And so I think agents can learn a lot. I even think investors can learn. and from things here. And so I've really enjoyed the conversation today. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if there's agents out there that want to learn more, they can always reach out. I love talking about this stuff and point people that want to learn.
Right.
I'm happy to point them in the right direction.
One of the number one things I tell agents, if hey, if you want to learn about investing, get around investors.
For sure.
And then for investors, when I tell them, like, hey, if you want to learn about creative financing, get around creative investors, right?
Yes.
It is, you grow into the conversations you're around. You become like the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
And don't let it just be by default, right? Like, think about it. Those CE classes, rarely can you learn a very practical
I don't remember
investment.
one thing I've ever learned from any CE class in 9 years. So what is that, 120 hours? No.
But the RIA though.
But the RIA all day long.
The real estate investor meetups. So when we say RIA, the real estate investor meetups that are in town, which you and I have been in numerous of those rooms together, I still put those on my calendar frequently.
For sure.
Throughout the whole region. Thanks for coming
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Let's go play trivia.
Okay, yeah, let's
No, we
play
need to
fruit
take our
trivia.
selfie.